Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am Puddles, and this is my series on encounter building, how to make your combats more interesting, more fun, more challenging, more interactive, more dynamic, all of the above. Today we're focusing on terrain, maps, how you can use them to give your players more options in the combat. And today we're going to be talking about interaction with the terrain, how you can make your maps so that there are things that the players can interact with. But let's just dive in, I suppose. I've got a couple of maps here, and then I'm going to show you a map that a DM that I played with had, and it was awesome. But first, we have a pit right in the middle of this map. And these are simple, easy maps. Like, I would probably never run a map like this. It's just an example for you guys. But we have a big old pit in the middle. We have a couple of berserker here, very strong guys who love to get into a rough and tumble scrap. We got some trees and some cliffs for like difficult terrain and stuff. So firstly, obviously the players can interact with the pit. So if there is a combat encounter here with these berserkers, firstly, positioning is very important. Your movement, where the players want to go. If they are squishy and weak and feel like they won't be able to go head to head with these berserkers, they're going to stay way away from the pit, or at least they're going to want to. And perhaps the stronger players, like your fighters and your paladins and things like that, they might want to go to the pit because they could maybe push the berserkers into said pits. Which brings other mechanics, combat mechanics that we haven't really talked about yet, but I'll go into other videos. But it means you can use grapple. Like, if you want to push someone into the pit and you grapple them, you can move them closer to said pit. Or you could use the shove action. You could just push them into the pit. So just by introducing this pit, you have given your players more options. Normally in a straight-up fight, grappling and shoving isn't that strong. It can be useful for certain things, but if you put a pit there, the players, I can tell you, are definitely going to want to push the creatures that you're using into the pit, and vice versa. If you've got creatures that want to do that, it just adds to that fight. Now, instead of just swinging your sword, you're also grabbing him and trying to pull him into a pit. And then if someone falls into the pit, they obviously take damage, but now they're at the bottom of this pit as their friends are fighting. Now they have to try climb out of the pit, which gives them a little bit more to think about in terms of the battle itself. So that's a simple, easy thing to throw into a combat. Just a big old hole. In a dungeon, you could have holes that go to different levels. You could have like a balcony on a castle that you're trying to throw people off. Anything that's like a raised area above a different place. Like you could have a cliff. And depending on how deadly you want it, you could have it really high, a really deep pit. But yeah, that's just a simple way to make your players think about using other actions instead of attacking and casting spells. Second, we have the trap encounter. So in this one, we have some goblins who've set up a bunch of traps in their camp in case someone fights. And let's say the players have decided to attack these goblins. We've got a bunch of rocks in a net held between these two trees. We've got two logs hanging in these trees, and we've got a little pit trap here and a rock, which the players could hide behind. And depending on what you want, you could have it so that all of these traps are very obvious to the players, so they would know that they're there. Or you could have them all hidden, and the players could trigger them by setting off traps, or you could have the goblins like cutting ropes to get these logs to swing at the players. But if you do make it obvious, then the players could potentially want to position the goblins in a way that the traps themselves will hurt the goblins instead. So you have the positioning. Obviously, the players are going to try to avoid the traps as well. And they would try to maneuver the goblins in a way, like I said. But it also gives the players a chance to use object interaction. So they see these traps and they're like, well, I'm going to set it off before the goblins set it off on me. So the fighter, on his turn, he rolls really high initiative. He goes to the tree, cuts the rope, and then the log swings down and hits 2 of the goblins. The mage sees that the one of the goblins is standing below the net, so he casts Mage Hand to like pull the rope or something like that. It just gives the players more options in said combat, and obviously it would give your creatures that you're playing as more options for things that they could potentially do. And it's definitely within theme for goblins to have traps to prevent your players from getting away or doing much damage. It also introduces the concept of investigation during fights. So if you have a trap, say all these are hidden traps, they're not known to the players. Once that first trap goes off, the players are going to start thinking about, oh, maybe there are other traps, and maybe it's worth my time, instead of attacking one of these creatures, I should be investigating for traps, because they are way more scary than the goblins that I can kill with one hit. So it adds another layer to that, which is basically all that we're doing with this. A really good encounter is just different layers of cool, interesting things on top of each other that make your players have more options. The more options there are, usually the more interesting and exciting the fight will be. So those are just a couple of examples of ways that you can have the players interact with what is on the map. Now I'm going to show you the map that one of my DMs had. Now this is 2 ships. For context, we were on a ship, and then a bunch of like pirate bandits came up. They threw lines tying the 2 ships together, and then started boarding us. Now, also, this was his first ever combat map. Like he was a new DM, and this is the first encounter he ran, and it is perfect. It is so amazing with just how it works. So, firstly, interaction. You can cut the ropes from the 2 ships so that they separate. If all that you want is to get away, you can focus all your attention on cutting the ropes so that the 2 ships break away. The bad guys, they put planks between the 2 ships so that people could walk across. As an object interaction, you could push one of the planks off so that they have to jump across instead. There is potential for throwing people overboard. You could grapple somebody and just throw them overboard. There were, if one player wanted to go, or one creature wanted to go from one ship to the other, and there were no planks, you'd have to make an athletics check to jump across. That just adds to the dynamics there. There are a whole bunch of things that you could take cover, like all of these little barrels and the mast and this boat here. These are excellent places for the range players to hide behind as they're shooting the guys on the other boat. He had a mage here who cast a fire spell immediately, and the captain of that ship told him that he shouldn't do that, which gave the players the clue that also, if you maybe set the ship on fire, the encounter might end, or bad things will happen. So that was another interaction. We could actually, and we did, set the opponent's ship on fire, whilst also maybe our ship could have gone on fire, and we would have had to figure ways to put it out. There was just so much that we as players could have done besides just shooting bows or swinging swords or casting spells. There was so much that we had, so many options that we had, and it was a really, really fun, exciting combat. As a player, this is probably one of the best encounters I've ever seen, whether I'm a DM or as a player. And this was a perfect example of ways that you can interact or get your players to interact with the map. And I just wanted to show that. So interaction with the map is, it's a good way of introducing things like grapple, like shove, like investigation. make the players use abilities that aren't necessarily attacking or casting spells. And yeah, again, like I keep saying in all these videos, it just adds a layer, another layer to combat, another dynamic, another thing to make it more interesting. But I hope you've enjoyed. I'll be making another couple of videos on terrain, and I hope you get a lot from these videos, and I hope it was enjoyable. Thanks.